Over a year after the end of e-tolls was promised, Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi has announced that the formal switch-off will now begin on the 31st of March this year. Speaking at the Gauteng State of the Province address on Monday, Lesufi said a meeting has been held with Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana and Transport Minister Sindisiwe Chikunga. He says an agreement has been reached that the process to have e-tolls formally switched off and de-linked will begin at the end of March. E-tolls were originally set to be scrapped on the 31st of December 2022, but negotiations between the Gauteng government and the National Treasury proved to be challenging. And for more on this, we're now joined by Adv Stefanie Fick, Executive Director of the Accountability Division at Organising Undoing Tax Abuse. And she joins us via our video link. Stephanie, thank you so much for joining us this evening. And as outer, you've always been opposed to these e-tolls. And now that we finally have a date of when they will officially be switched off, what's your reaction as outer?
Unfortunately, we've heard this before, and I think we've said this before, the proof is in the pudding. So let's see if this will actually happen this time, because I think we would have all been millionaires if, you bet money on the promises and whether it will be implemented. So hopefully it will actually happen this time, around.
And many are also asking themselves, the bone of contention here was always the e-tolls bill in the country and who will foot this bill. How will this actually affect Gauteng residents and where will this money come from?
It actually shouldn't affect the Gauteng motorists. So I think this is part of the contention we have. So let's start off. Where did e-toll start? And we must remember, SANRAL is responsible for all our national roads, and SANRAL is actually very good at keeping, our roads maintained. I think the roads we have problems with is provincial and local governments' roads. The ones with the potholes, etc., etc. But the GFIP, in other words, where we find these electronic tolls, is only 1% of SANRAL's total road surface. So you're talking about 180, make it 200 kilometers of road versus 22,000 kilometers of SANRAL's total road surface. We pay too much for the construction of these roads, and if this was successful, I think close to 8.5 billion rand over 5 years would have left South Africa if this was successful. So this whole system was shrouded in corruption right from the start. Now, let me just reiterate, we are not against tolling, for example, or the fact that SANRAL should be responsible for upgrading of our roads. It's just, at the present moment, we also don't understand where all the money went. SANRAL has been getting money from the fiscus for a very long time for GFIP. And that is just that 1% of roads. So, where will the money come from? The question is, why should Gauteng pay for this piece of road? Everybody uses the road. Gauteng is the economic hub. We provide 33% of South Africa's GDP. Our GDP is bigger than KwaZulu-Natal and Western Cape combined. And then the second question is, the Gauteng government in any case gets more than 85% of their income from national government. So, it's more a question of, but why is there still money outstanding? And why should Gauteng pay 30% of that?
And what's your take on the announcement that we've seen? We saw this announcement taking place yesterday. Today, we have an announcement for the elections from President Cyril Ramaphosa. With the upcoming elections, do you also maybe think that this may be a political move, at some point, because this is something that a number of Gauteng residents have rejected from the onset?
Yeah, unfortunately, because there's such a trust deficit, I think, currently with, government, is that that's the first thing you think of. this is most probably an election ploy. And that's why let's see if that actually happens. I mean, the ANC specific in Gauteng has always been vocal about e-tolls, that they don't agree, etc., etc. But every time before an election, whether it's a local election or a national election, we revisit this whole e-toll thing. And if you consider the budget of Lesufi, I mean, one would always like to think that all these dreams will come true for the people on the ground. But honestly, this year we said we're not going to watch Sona, the president's Sona, because it's always promises. And, if one can believe everything that is out there, I think this year the president was even further removed from the reality of just normal South Africans on the ground. And then the same sort of message came from Lesufi, is that, do you understand the hardship people in Gauteng are living with? And that priorities, you don't see the priorities in these budgets and speeches that should be addressed. And then unfortunately, then it speaks to, but is this only a way of saying to people, vote for us because we'll fix it next year or the year after? And the reality, it's never fixed.
And when it comes to those who have been paying for e-tolls, Stephanie, do we know whether they will be refunded by the Gauteng government or perhaps SANRAL? Because some of them have actually been paying for a number of years.
Yes, true that. And, a part of me wants to say that because we believe that this whole scheme was, sort of a corrupt scheme, firstly, people shouldn't have paid, but if you did pay, you had your reasons to pay, and that you should probably get refunded. But the reality is that it will probably not happen. If we are having discussions about where will the 30% come from out of Gauteng, if we're already struggling with so many things just in our metros, I mean, the roads are water, the examples, we can go on and on and on. So where will they get money? But it's also impractical, because you must remember, companies like your rental companies, they pass that on to their customers. And how on earth will that work administratively? I mean, SANRAL was actually struggling with e-tolls and e-toll billing. We know how many problems there were with e-toll billing, people complaining it's not my car. In-Artis, that's also not accurate, 100% accurate. And that you're starting to realize that from a practical point of view, that probably won't happen.
Stephanie, thank you so much for your time this evening here in SABC News. That is Advocate Stefanie Fick. She is the Executive Director of Accountability Division at organisation Undoing Tax Abuse.